If Field Inspector starts up immediately, it means you have configured the software successfully. Let's look at the interface. We have a File option, View, Projects, Data Loggers, Prepare Jobs, Process Jobs, Tools, and a Help function. I also can quickly browse to my project at the top of the screen, and also process and prepare jobs too. My jobs are in the main screen, and I can navigate with the tabs on the left of the screen. I have also set up projects, set up data loggers, prepare and process jobs. To assign a data logger to a project, I can simply drag and drop it. In the Prepare Job screen, I can allocate points or inspections for a Field user to inspect. Once this data has been sent back, it will appear in the Process Jobs screen. But firstly, let's create a project. Click New. Give the project a name. This name will also appear on the data logger. And you may also add a note. If more than one person works on these projects, it might be handy to add a note saying who created the project and when. Specify a coordinate system. In this case, we will use lat-long, but there are many other coordinate systems available from across the world and also South Africa. Bear in mind the database has to be correctly set up to handle these coordinates. The second screen just asks me if I want to determine and establish a direct link to the database. Of course I do. The third screen is where I add my relationships. I choose ODBC and add. Specify the database connection that we've set up in the configuration utility, but in this case I won't choose the Field Inspector schema. I will choose the tutorial database because this is where my forms are contained. The first table I will choose is my spatial table. In this screen I'm busy setting up a connection. I will call it tutorial and specify the address of the database. Specify your system administrator login details. Choose the tutorial database and test the connection. Now we can choose tutorial from the list, login details again. All the tables are available. I will choose spatial first. Define a primary key. Specify my geometry storage. Native format will store the data in the geometry field. Now I can see my spatial table is available. I will add a related inspection table. Primary key ID, of course. No geometry, as this is only a form. Specify the relationship and click OK. Choose where my metadata will be stored. As Field Inspector stores this automatically, we do not specify a specific location. In this screen, I can specify attributes. If I would like to create a drop-down, simply click List and enter the drop-down options. It's important to note, the database doesn't even need to know this is going to be a drop-down, only in Field Inspector. So in my city, I will add Pretoria, Johannesburg, and Durban, and the field unit and user will have a drop-down list to choose these three options from. Hydrant type can either be fire hydrant or irrigation hydrant, for example and training purposes only. I also have a comment field, which is free text. If the user feels there is a comment he has to add, Date will be date time stored in the database. I have a photo field and a signature field where the user will be allowed to sign on the device. It's also important to note all the different options available, including barcode string, which we'll talk about in the next tutorial video. In this screen, I'll determine the labels that my field user sees when in the field, and also collect data so that the points can be differentially corrected. This is a very important screen where I set up my processing. Will it happen automatically? If so, schedule the times which data will be processed, or time past the hour. I choose 35 minutes past the hour. I also choose a base station from which the data will be downloaded. In this case, it will be Pretoria, but a whole list of base stations across the world is available. Now I have to set up a connection to my data source if I would like my data to be automatically updated to the database. This connection setup process is similar to the initial setup in the configuration and project design. I choose my database, I log in with my systems administrator credentials and click OK. Choose my coordinate system and specify location for storage of images. And that concludes project setup. It is also possible to add a background to my project. There is a background tab in the project menu, and here I can add a shapefile or a raster file. Give the background a name, specify the coordinate system, and choose the file location. As you can see, I have many files here already added, and I will simply choose one to add to my new project. Simply select your project. To the right, click on Add Background Layer. Choose the background layer from the drop-down list and click Add. It will now be added as a layer on my project. We will now have to connect our data logger to the computer, as this is a first-time setup. In order for this to happen, please make sure you have Windows Mobile Device Center and click the Connect Without Setting Up button. In Field Inspector, click the Set Up Data Logger tab and Set Up. As you can see, the software has already been installed on my data logger, but this is the step where the software will be installed. I'm updating communication settings. Next. In this step, Field Inspector waits for the data logger to connect to the database through the communication service. This is a crucial part because if it fails, it means that my unit will not be able to receive and send back jobs to the office. This may take a few seconds. As you can see, my data logger has been connected. Next. Now I will name my data logger for easy identification. Field Inspector will check the license status of my data logger, and you may have to configure a new license if it has not been licensed. In this screen I can sign it to a project, but I won't. I will simply drag and drop it at a later stage. The next step would be to assign a job to our newly added data logger. Click on the Prepare Jobs tab to the left and choose your project. As you can see, my background has already been added. I will simply click New Job, give the job a name for identification. Click Next. Choose the features. As you can see, there are currently no features in my spatial table. So for this case, I will simply add an empty job to my newly assigned data logger. The job is available. I simply drag and drop it onto my unit. The unit will now receive a notification when I open up Field Inspector. I can see with the computer icon there is communication between the field and the office. I can see I am assigned to tutorial 1, which is my current project, so I should be receiving my job anytime. There we go, job has been received, and I can have a look at the inspection that I have to do. Currently no inspections. This means I will do an unassigned inspection. I choose my inspection table. Specify my inspection ID. Choose the field worker. As specified in the project creation, this will be drop downs. Specify my city, specify my hydrant type, condition of the hydrant, a comment, if any, and choose my date. This date can also be hidden. This is a little more advanced functionality and will be discussed in a later tutorial. I can also take a photograph or simply choose a photo that has already been taken. The next step will require the field worker to sign. I will simply, with the stylus, sign on my screen and click Next. Now it's time for a GPS point. The GPS is ready to log a position, and I simply click the icon, wait for the box to populate. The position has been logged, as you can see, and click the Yes tick. Now this inspection has been added. There is a black dot to the right indicating a complete inspection. Once done, I will click the icon to the bottom left of the screen, and Field Inspector will ask me if I would like to send this job back to the office. You may make a note and click Yes. Now the job has gone, and the data, as you can see, is being transferred via the internet to the office. It's important to note, the larger the photo, the longer the transfer process will take. Back in Field Inspector, you can see there are no more jobs assigned to my unit, and I can process my job. It's awaiting processing as specified in the project creation, and I can view my data within Field Inspector. I can look at my photos, and also I can look at the points on my background map. The data will now await processing and will be sent back to the database for reassignment and reporting.